Ashley Keiko, and you're listening to Mastermind.
You are now part of a social experiment.
See now where my limit is. Only got no ohs. It's like they just wanna see you struggle. I swear they don't wanna see you shine. They don't. It's like they just want you to bleed and they want you to fall. They don't want you to be where the streets are paved with gold.
Welcome to Mastermind, the home of Black excellence and self-mastery. Here's your host, Mr. G.
Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today on the journey towards self-mastery. Our next guest is a saxophonist, pianist, composer, singer, songwriter, educator, music advocate, and entrepreneur. She's been practicing and playing music for over 20 years. As a musician, her area of expertise is in the saxophone, the flute, and the piano. She holds a bachelor's in music performance and a master's in music education from Teachers College at Columbia University. She has performed in different venues all over the world, including the great Apollo Theater in New York, as well as other cities around the country, China, Australia, and Family Feud. She recently released her debut album, Pursuit of Harmony, that is a mixture of jazz, hip hop, R&B, pop, and gospel. Through her saxophone and piano, she's made cover songs of Cardi B, Daniel Caesar, Beyonce, Bruno Mars, Ariana Grande, Snoop Dogg, the Fugees, Jhené Aiko, her, Lauryn Hill, Michael Jackson, Drake, and the list goes on and on. As an entrepreneur, she started teaching her music lessons at the age of 14 in a space in her parents' martial arts school, Zen Masters. At 25, she was able to open up her own school in the heart of Jamaica, Queens, Keiko Studios. Keiko Studios offers the ability for everyone in the community to learn any instrument at an affordable price. Let's welcome today Miss Ashley Keiko to the program. Ashley, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure is all mine, man. I know you are super busy, so we appreciate you, spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to start by just asking you a bit about, your childhood and everything. And I know Keiko is it's Japanese, right?
Yes, it is.
So where along your family tree does Japan fit in?
So it actually doesn't.
Okay.
But my parents, my father in particular, does martial arts and is a lover of all forms of martial arts. And so he wanted to give my siblings and I Japanese middle names. So that's how that came about. So my middle name, and it's usually pronounced Keiko, but my family, I guess being American, they just didn't know how it was actually pronounced. So we've always pronounced it Keiko. And so I just always pronounce it Keiko now.
Got it. I'm glad I asked you that because I was thinking you were part Japanese, but now we know. Now we know what it is. All right. So you just mentioned your parents' martial arts school and everything, and that was a huge part of your upbringing. So can you just walk us through, that experience growing up and getting, a black belt through your parents' school and just being a part of the process as well? So can you talk to us about that?
Yes, it was a big part of my life growing up as a child. As at a very young age, my father had a martial arts school in Flushing, and eventually it moved to Queens, in particular St. Albans, and I was always involved in not only taking martial arts lessons, but helping with the business. As soon as I was old enough, they had me participating in reception work and helping out with the summer program that they had, teaching the martial arts classes, and then eventually also teaching music classes at the martial arts school once I was, at a comfortable space where I could teach. They had me very involved in all things surrounding the business.
Right. And speaking about music, like, how was it that you got kind of into music? Was it something that you kind of got into on your own, or did your parents put you onto that? And then how did you go about choosing your instruments and what you would do and just falling in love with it and all that? Like, what was that journey like?
Yes. So music was actually something that I was interested in naturally as a child. I saw some of my classmates playing piano at school when I was in elementary school. And when I saw them playing piano, I just wanted to be able to play just like them. So I asked my parents if I could learn how to play piano, and they listened, thankfully, and they, encouraged me to take piano lessons. So all of my siblings, we all took piano lessons. And then as I was getting a little bit older, getting better at piano, I was in middle school and my school had a music program. So I wanted to, of course, be a part of that music program, but piano was not an option at school. It was more of a concert band or a wind ensemble type of scenario that they had. So I had to choose a wind instrument or a percussion instrument. And my dad really encouraged me to pick saxophone because that was an instrument that he played when he was younger. So that's how I got into sax. And my parents also really encouraged me to keep up both instruments as I was learning, and not, at that moment, it wasn't a time for me to switch, but it was just a time for me to add on to what I was
Right.
already doing. So that's how I ended up having both instruments be primary instruments.
Got it. Got it. Were you like a little bit apprehensive about the sax? Because I know, like, just when I think about the sax, all I think about is men that play the sax. Like, you're actually one of the first women I've like looked into. I know there are many more that do, but like just really looked at that play the sax and play really well, by the way. But were you like apprehensive at first? Like, this is not really a feminine space, like kind of thing, or were you
Yes.
just like, I'm gonna go with it?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was. Even at that young age, I think to some extent I was aware that it wasn't an instrument that women typically play. It wasn't so much to the point where I was like, no, I'm not going to play it. And I guess that is in part to because of my age, I just didn't really know much about it at all in general, just the instrument itself. Um, so to some extent, I did know, like, that just because the instrument size, because it was a little bigger, I was like, this doesn't look as cute as maybe the flute. And that's really what I wanted to play was the flute. At first, like that was my first choice. But then, yeah, my dad really encouraged me. And, I just, after that, I didn't really think too much about it. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't really realize it until I got older, and people would say things and be like, "Oh wow, I haven't seen a woman playing saxophone." So that's when I started noticing that it was a gendered thing.
Right, right, right. Another, I guess, part of your upbringing was that the school that you went to was predominantly white, correct?
Yes,
So
so
how,
predominantly white and Asian.
white and Asian. So how did you find like your kind of space in between that world, and what was it like I guess treatment wise and like in the classroom and everything?
Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. It was mostly in elementary school that I felt I was really like an outsider. I felt like I didn't really have a clique of people like other kids my age did at the school. A lot of people could kind of connect through their culture. And because I went to school in Flushing, there were a lot of Korean students and Chinese students. So they could really connect with each other um, just by through their culture. And so I did feel like an outsider a lot. And also having that experience racially, I ended up having that experience again through music in a gender sense, because then later on I was always the only girl in my music classes. So I have kind of experienced that a lot in different ways as a child. And in coping with it, thankfully, I never experienced anything too negative in terms of racism. But but yeah, I mean, it is just the feeling of not really having a clique or a group, and just, being the only one. Sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable, but kind of, surpassing. And also, my parents would always tell me that saying that a lot of people get, which is you have to work twice as hard as everyone else.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that happening, which I feel like did benefit me in the long run because I did work hard, which, I still have that work ethic today.
Absolutely. And speaking of work ethic, I've tried to play a few instruments unsuccessfully, just on my own. So I have a huge appreciation for people that are able to really learn it and to master it. So what was your journey of mastering the saxophone and the piano to where you can play anything? I've heard you play everything, like you play anything. So what was that journey like in regards to how many hours a day you were practicing, some of the things that you were getting involved in to create confidence in what you do to where you're at now with the instruments?
Yeah, it was really difficult at first. And something that I always say in interviews that my mom always, she always gives me a hard time about this, but I always tell people that she forced me to play the piano. And she hates when I say that. But to say it in a more positive way, she really encouraged me to stick with it and to practice, and really instilled in me how important it was to practice, and also that she was not going to waste her money on those lessons if I wasn't going to go home and practice. So it was difficult at first, and it wasn't something that completely came naturally to me. There was some difficulty and there was some pushback even when it came to my parents, having to tell me you need to practice. It wasn't like I just went and loved practicing and wanted to practice. So, and I always tell my students' parents that as well, because, I think sometimes when you see professional musicians, you feel like it just came naturally to them and they didn't really have to work that hard, and that it should be something that's automatically fun. But it does take some time to get to that point where it becomes fun. And, you do have to really practice. So I did have to, really force myself to practice in the beginning. And
Right.
now, it comes a little more naturally to me to practice. And still to this day, I practice as much as I can, at least once a day, every day.
How
It's
many
definitely,
hours?
yeah, I was just going to say, it's not as many hours as I wish it was. I spend at least 1 hour every day currently. But I know musicians that spend 5 hours every day, but with also managing the music school, it has been difficult to spend more time practicing. So yeah, right now it's about 1 hour per day.
And what
And
was it? What was it for you when you were learning and really fine tuning your skills?
yeah, when I was in college, and even a little bit before college, I was spending at least 3 hours per day practicing, and spending that time on both saxophone and piano. And even then it was difficult because when you're in school, you have other classes too, especially high school. You have other classes that you have to do assignments for, homework, other extracurricular activities. So it's definitely difficult to fit in that time, but it's essential too.
Indeed. And I do want to say for listeners that hear that bass in the background, that is you're at your music school right now. So
Yeah, so you can hear it.
I hear it a slight bit, but it's all good. It's the authenticity of what you do. So for listeners, Ashley's in her studios right now where her students are playing. So that's what you hear in the background. So speaking of school and everything, I know musicians sometimes when they are doing their thing at the high school, middle school level, transitioning over, there's this urge to kind of study something else, and just, practice your music, but study something else. Why would you want to study in music? There's not even that many careers in that. What can you do with that? This is what people generally think and say to people that want to pursue the arts and stuff like that, whether it's music or whatever else? Why would you study the arts in college? So what made you want to study the arts in college? Did you get any pushback? And what made you like, yo, this is what I want to do? And did you have a game plan about how you wanted to go about it? Or was it just like through passion?
Yeah, I did receive a little bit of pushback, just a little bit. Thankfully, not too much in comparison to other people I know. And my family is very supportive, like 100%. They support me, so that's why I did feel very comfortable going to school for music. Although there are all of those thoughts that go through either your mind or other people's mind that, oh, like, why are you going to school for music? Because you might not be successful in it and you might need something to fall back on. Mm-hmm. So although there are those thoughts, my family was so supportive and helped me to feel comfortable with my decision. And my decision was very surrounded around my passion. At the time, I just loved music and I felt like that was the only thing that I was really, really good at. Out of all of my classes that I was taking in high school, music was the only one that I felt like I was really, really excelling in, more so than any other subject. So it was really a passion thing. And I saw myself performing. At the time, I didn't so much see myself teaching, but I really grew to love it by the time I went to do my grad classes to get my master's. I really started loving teaching by that point. And so I wanted to get a degree and learn more about education and teaching students of all ages. So that was kind of, if anything, my fallback, my thing to fall back on was teaching, and eventually, opening up a school. That was always kind of my second option, which almost kind of turned into a first option now. But
all right. So you were just talking about like teaching and education component of what you do. And to be 14, like teaching kids your age and younger, I'm guessing, or maybe even older, how to play instruments, like what created that confidence of you wanting to do that? Was that another push by your parents, or was it like you telling them that you wanted to do it?
It was a push by my parents. And yeah, it's so funny whenever I, talk about my childhood or just how I got into music and the music school, I end up bringing up my parents a lot because they were just so instrumental in everything that I do. So, and just, really encouraging and wanting me and my siblings to be successful and to be well-rounded. So yeah, that was definitely a move from my parents. And it was kind of like a situational thing. It wasn't that it just was an idea. It was more so one of the martial arts students at their school was interested in taking piano lessons. And it was just in conversation that student's mother had with my mother. They were just kind of having a friendly conversation. And then my mom was like, oh, well, my daughter can teach your son, so it was kind of just in that moment that she thought of that idea. And then I just, being the type of child that I was, I guess I just kind of listened to everything my parents told me. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And then it really just grew from me having that one student. Then I was doing it in an area where other people could kind of see what I was doing. So other people started becoming interested, and it grew from there.
That is dope. That's dope. All right. So you're growing in that, and then you go to Columbia Teachers College, and you had some experiences too to kind of travel and study abroad and perform abroad. So what was those experiences like?
It was great. The first experience I had was in China, and that was very interesting to go to a country where almost everyone is of the same race and culture. being from New York, you know, it's a melting pot, and you're so used to being around such a vast population of people that it's just so mixed. There's so many different types of people, and going to China made me really realize and appreciate that. But it was very interesting because of the language barrier, we had to rely a lot on music, because we were, you know, I was doing a few music courses and projects where we had to kind of work with the students that were native
Right.
to China. And so we really had to rely on music to communicate and to get through some of those class projects. And it was interesting how we were able to still be successful even though we didn't speak each other's language. And just how powerful and universal the language of music is. It is, you know, everywhere in the world there is music, and so you can kind of relate to people through that music.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. I know you performed in other places too, like Australia, and even in the Steve Harvey, the Family Feud show. Like, so I've looked at kind of, you know, your work too, and it seems that you're able to perform anywhere. So like, you know, what is it like for you, like performing? Like, do you get nervous or anything, like depending on the setting, or is it just like a transformation and it's go time?
Yeah, I do get nervous. I haven't gotten to the place where I'm totally comfortable at every single performance. I mean, there are some performances where I do surprisingly feel very comfortable and I don't really get nerves. But the times that I get nerves is actually for smaller performances, like when it's, you know, not too many people in the audience, or, you know, I'm not on stage and I'm kind of like on the same level as the audience and it's really intimate. I get more nervous in those scenarios than when it's a huge crowd. So, so yeah, I definitely still get nervous, but I do try to like make sure that I'm prepared as much as possible, because the more prepared I am, then the less nervous I feel.
That makes sense, man. That's a formula for everything, I feel like, you know?
Yes.
So while you were in college, you focused in on looking into what you say is the intersection between music, culture, and like the arts and everything. What were some of your findings, I guess, from your studies between like how those things interconnect and things like that?
Yes. So, yeah, that is really in reference to my experience in China. That's where I really reflected on the intersection between music, language, and culture. And so yeah, it was just a very profound experience. But outside of that, in school and doing my master's, I really learned a lot about psychology, believe it or not, and kind of learning how people learn, which is kind of like a form of psychology. And doing that education degree, a lot of people don't really know what a music education degree or what the courses look like, and what that might mean. So a lot of it is not playing music at all. A lot of it is really learning about how people learn, and learning the best ways to kind of teach and teach groups of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Groups of people that may not all learn at the same speed or at the same capacity. So I learned a lot about that in college and in my master's program. And yeah, it was so beneficial. It was probably one of the most beneficial schooling experiences that I've had
Right.
growing up, because I was really able to use everything that I learned currently now.
Interesting. Did that whole experience of learning, you know, how to teach music and about like, I guess, music in depth, did that make you really want to transition into owning your own educational space? And what was like that like did it transpire like right after college, or 'cause I know you started pretty early, like 25. Most people
Yeah.
don't know what they want in life at 25, and you're starting
Yeah.
your own business, like, you know?
So yes, it was a combination of things. It was definitely finishing my master's. I did open the music school, I think almost exactly a year after that, or maybe a little less than a year after that. Uh, but even outside of school, I was teaching so much, and I was really teaching in order to afford college. And that's kind of what helped me to afford college. And just getting to that space where I was teaching almost 30 students on a weekly basis myself,
Man.
it was basically a business at that point. And even before opening my storefront location, I had incorporated my business when I was teaching at my parents' martial arts school. So it really was like a full-fledged business. I just didn't have a location. So, and it kind of just grew into that. It was never really a plan or an intention of mine, but yeah, the magnitude of what I was doing really called for it. And so that's really how that happened. And then just in, having the magnitude of those lessons and not having a space to do it in, that's really what kind of forced me to look into having my own location,
Mhm.
because the space was also doubling as a martial arts school, and the room in particular was a girls changing room because the school wasn't very big. So the few extra rooms that they had outside of the main practice area were changing areas for the students, where they would go and change into their martial arts uniform and then go to class.
Right.
So it was hectic, to say the least, because I would have to time the classes so that they weren't happening when the girls were going to change. And then if the piano lessons were happening during the martial arts classes, then especially the higher ranking classes where the black belts were in those classes, it was very noisy too, because they're like, yeah, ha, ha, screaming, punching. So it was very loud, and hearing that while you're trying to play piano just wasn't a good combination.
Got you. All right. So what were some of the things, I guess, opening that school like that you had to do, maybe you didn't know that you had to do before, that encompassed like opening up a school, like an actual educational institution?
Yes, the expenses were tremendous, to say the least. So I definitely wasn't able to do it by myself. I actually did a fundraiser in
Okay.
anticipation of opening up the studio. I did a very big fundraiser on Kickstarter, and I tried to get as many people as possible to donate, and that was so much work, just getting people to believe in your vision, and then believe in it so much to give you money for it. That was
Right.
very difficult thing to do. And so I spent months just working on that Kickstarter and getting donations, and so that helped a lot. And thankfully the Kickstarter was very successful. And along with the Kickstarter, I did have some funds that I had saved from teaching music classes myself. And thankfully I was still at my parents' house, so I didn't have any expenses of my own. So I was able to save. Also, having my parents as partial partners, that was also helpful as well. So it was definitely a village that helped to bring the actual physical location to life. And then also, just in anticipation for the running the business, it was definitely a lot of preparation and planning, in terms of going from just myself teaching to now having other music teachers and other staff, and taking on more of a managerial role myself.
Right.
So there was a lot of preparation that went into that, and organization as well, just trying to figure out how I was going to keep track of all of these people. So yeah, a lot of planning.
Got you. And speaking of other staff, I read some of the bios of your staff members, and they are highly accomplished. How do you go about picking who is going to be a good fit for the school?
So I do all the interviews myself, and they are pretty extensive. I do hear them play their instruments, just to kind of vet them and see what their instrument playing is like, what their technique is like. So I know that they'll be teaching the correct technique to their students. And I also just ask a series of questions to see that they're a good fit, not only musically, but also just as a professional, and as a basically as an employee, like if they will be responsible, professional, and show up to work on time, all of those things. So it is a lot to look at for that position.
Got you. And we're talking about you at 25 years old. Did you get any pushback from people like, "Yo, you're a kid. Like, what are you over here telling me what I got to do?" And like,
Yes.
like.
Well, not yes. So no, I actually thankfully didn't get any pushback. I think everyone kind of understands their roles. But for me in particular, it was difficult in the beginning because some of my employees are older than me. Quite a few of them are older than me. So, so it was kind of a learning curve in the beginning for me to figure out how I was going to communicate with them and figure out how I wanted to kind of, I guess, create the relationship that I would have with my employees. And that still is a learning process, and I'm still learning as the business grows and as I have new employees and experience different personalities as well. I'm always learning. So yeah, but I've definitely gotten more comfortable with being a supervisor of people that are older than me.
Got you. All right. So just why exactly Jamaica, Queens, like that area? And then let's say I'm walking through Jamaica, Queens, I'm with my daughter, and we look up, we see Keiko Studios. We're like, "Yo, what is this all about?" We go inside and we meet the great Ashley Keiko herself. And you chat with us about just your space and what it is there to provide and what it does. So what would that conversation be like?
Okay, so I'll start with Jamaica, Queens. So I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, specifically Cambria Heights, but this is, my hometown. And so I felt a big responsibility to give back to my community. A lot of people in the beginning, even when I was doing the fundraiser, they asked, why you might as well just do it in a nicer neighborhood, like that's what people have told me that, like, why are you doing it there? I mean, you're doing this fundraiser, you're getting income, so why not just, do it somewhere nicer? And so that comment is always like such an insult to me, honestly. But I mean, one of the biggest reasons is because this neighborhood doesn't have these types of businesses and these opportunities.
Exactly.
Yes, it's like that's the exact reason why I would put it in this neighborhood, so that it could be a nice neighborhood. Like, why can't this neighborhood be referred to as a nice neighborhood, And so that's also one of the reasons why I wanted the studio to be so well decorated, and for it to look nice and to have a nice atmosphere when you go in. And we put so much work into just doing the construction and deciding the tiles, the colors of the walls, the chandeliers, everything. Like, we put so much work into that and time. And I really wanted Jamaica, Queens to have somewhere nice, and when people come in, they see the space and they're like, oh wow, I feel like I'm in Manhattan.
Yeah, it does
know?
have that feel. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Thank you. And you know, I do take that as a compliment, but I also feel like, why does only Manhattan have this feeling? Or why does a atmosphere like this remind you of Manhattan? Why can't that remind you of Jamaica Queens, you know? So yeah, it's just a lot of just wanting to give back to my community and make it better for our people.
Kudos, man, because a lot of times when we go through that, it's like, well, I don't want to be in the community, you know how them people be at, and then also like they probably can't afford it, and I gotta give bargains and all this kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of theories as to like how we, meaning Black and brown folks, are gonna respond to having something nice, you know what I'm saying? And thank you for just kind of seeing that we deserve something nice in that community, in that area, despite what other people were saying.
Thank you. Yes.
So yeah, so I'm with my daughter, and we are just chatting about what you have to offer and what she could possibly get into. I don't know what instrument she's gonna play yet or anything like that. I just know I want her in music, kind of like your mother.
Yeah. So you're saying, what would that conversation be like?
Yeah. About Keiko Studios, what you guys offer, what our options would be, things like that.
Okay. So yeah, we have a lot of different options for quite a large range of people. We start as young as 2 years old, 2 to 4 years old. And we have a preschool music class. It's called Keiko Kids. And that is where they learn basic music education, basically the fundamentals of music, so that when they get a little older, they can easily transition into an instrument of their choice. And that class, they, play small percussion instruments, they do singing, a movement, and they're learning a lot about music while also having fun. And then after that, we start at 5 years old with the private and group lessons. And for private lessons, students have an option of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or hour-long lessons. And then also they have the option of doing group lessons, family groups, and then we also have open groups, which are people that are not necessarily families. They're just kind of want a group setting. So we have those options. The group lessons are all an hour long. And then we also have a glee club. So that is basically like a choir. And that's for children ages 6 through 13 at the moment. Hopefully soon we'll have more choirs for younger groups and also adults. We have had quite a few adults interested in choir.
Interesting. In the previous interview, I heard you mention that the choir is $10 a session. Is that still the case?
Yes. So yeah, Glee Club is currently $10 a session. So that is our most inexpensive class at the moment. And we really, once again, just want people to have that opportunity to experience being in a choir and also be able to add it on to what they might already be studying. We wanted them to be able to have multiple options without it breaking the bank.
That's amazing, man. And you guys do performances too, man, which are pretty cool. And community events. You do community events as well, right?
Yes. So we haven't done many community events recently because of COVID, but before the pandemic, we were having jam sessions every month, which was open to the public and open to any musician to come and play. And we also had a Halloween party as well that was open to the public. Anyone in the community could join us for that. So hopefully we'll be getting back to that soon.
Kudos to you guys. You guys are doing a wonderful job in the community. I just wanted to ask a few educational questions about just music and everything. I know you mentioned you guys start at 2 with the kids, and I've heard from so many people like, wow, you want to wait till like 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, when they're mature and they're ready to sit down for a lesson and stuff like that. So Is there a ripe age when kids could start like learning, or is it you can really get them in whenever age that's possible?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right age because everyone is different. So it really can be any age. I actually have a nephew and he is, I think, 8 months now, and I already started teaching him piano.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been on a consistent basis, unfortunately, just because of schedule. But whenever I'm with him, I bring him to the piano and I have him play a little bit. But I mean, it's always the approach, and the instructor has to understand how to teach a student of that age. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a right age, but I think sometimes, depending on the instrument, you may hear comments that suggest you should wait because certain instruments like the guitar or even saxophone, they might be very large for a small person to handle. Um, like a guitar in particular is very large. They sometimes can't reach their arm over to strum the strings. So in those cases, I would say there can be a waiting time, waiting for the child to get a little bigger. But outside of that, I don't really like to put a limit on it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know that before. I thought there was like a certain age. So there is this push, I guess, to save money in a lot of educational institutions, and let's get the arts out of here. Like they don't really need that. You don't have to have the arts. What case would you make for like to keep the arts, and then how does it impact children in your view in regards to learning and development?
Yes, I feel like it's so important. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't see its importance, but it has shown, and there have been studies that prove that music improves your cognitive and also your hand-eye coordination. And it helps a lot with students with math and science and different subjects. But not only that, I think it's also very helpful for children to have an outlet where they can express themselves and where they can also learn and have fun while they're learning. I think, of course, other subjects can be fun, but other academic subjects don't give you as much freedom as music can.
Right.
And I think it can be a nice break, especially, if music is offered in schools. It can be a nice break from all of the academic work for children to kind of just use their brain in a different capacity. Has always really been helpful for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the reasons I wanted to get my daughter involved in music is because, like, just thinking back, I never met anybody that was involved in music that wasn't good in school or smart. So I was like, yeah, there's got to be something there that's like, a huge connection between being a musician, learning music, playing music, and intelligence. So I'm like, I gotta, get involved in this. So that's what won it for me. It's almost hard to believe that through all of this, you do your own thing with music and you have your own music career. I don't know where you fit it into your life. I don't know if you sleep or what that process is like for you, man. But you are a very, very good jazz musician. And I would say it's more than jazz. You mix it up quite a bit. When I first looked at your work, I think it was through like an Instagram post, and I just saw you playing the sax and the piano at the same time. First, I was like, yo, is that two different people? Like, what is the same is that twins? Like, what is going on? whoever hooked that up for you is on point, like as far as graphics. But
I actually do that myself.
Wow, that's amazing.
I taught myself how to video edit. Yes.
That is dope, because I was scratching my head like, yo, what is happening? But it was dope, man. And I just ran through endless covers that you did of different musicians and different songs, and you just have like this infinite ability to recreate things into the sax and the piano. Like, what inspires you creatively to kind of do all that and to put things together like that, transcribing them into the sax and the piano? Is that a whole process, or do you like at the point now where you like hear it and you're like, oh yeah, I could play that like right away? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I have gotten to the point where it doesn't take much for me to learn a song, especially, if it's R&B, hip hop, pop, Afrobeat, anything contemporary. It doesn't take much for me to figure it out. I do it by ear. I do, have like extensive training in music theory, and I am able to write out the music and everything, but I do it all by ear. So
Wow.
it's not, it is pretty easy to do that.
Man, I would just say real quick, like listeners, please go and check out Ashley Keiko's covers, and you'll see like why I'm saying wow, because like it's on point, to the T of the song, just in a sax form and a piano form. So the fact that it's not even something you write down and like, you're like takes days to do is amazing, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I definitely do practice it a lot before I record the videos. So I definitely want to say that it's not like I just learn it and then 2 seconds later I record it on a video. It does take some planning and practice as well. Like I want to make sure I have the song down before I record it. So there definitely is that. But in the learning process, I just listen and then play along with it. And then I would say that the only difficulty I have sometimes is being creative with the music, because sometimes it's very easy to just play what the original artist did. But, I always try to push myself to make it different and to make it my own. And so that, sometimes it takes time depending on the song. I want to make sure I just add my little 2 cents into it.
Right.
So
And then,
yeah, sometimes I take my time to figure out what that is, and then I record it.
that is interesting, man. Also, too, like with the covers, is there things that you have to be careful with, like as far as copyright? And then, how do those artists have any of them ever responded to, like looking or listening to some of the songs that you covered?
Yes. So there isn't a big issue with copyright with the songs that I do. Just on YouTube, I can't monetize any of my videos, so I don't make any money off of my videos. I honestly do them just for fun. And because they're all covers, like I said, I can't monetize it, but it does bring me a lot of joy, and I like being able to kind of share that with the people online. And yes, I have had a few artists reach out, specifically Cardi B. She reshared my video when I did a cover of Up. And so that was really exciting. She shared it twice, actually. She shared it on Twitter, and then she made a video compilation of a lot of people that did covers of the song. And I was in that compilation. So
Dope.
that was really nice.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Transitioning from covers now, you kind of went into your debut album, Pursuit of Harmony. So what did that entail? Like you transit. And another thing, I noticed like from a recent interview you did, you mentioned that you got a grant to do Pursuit of Harmony. I didn't even know you can get grants to do albums. So how does that even work? And how'd you go about getting a grant?
Yes. So that grant, it was specifically for Queens artists or creatives, I guess you could say. So people that were doing any type of art form. So it could be music, art, dance, theater. So I was able to, I had to actually apply and write out an essay and everything in order to receive that grant. And thankfully, they were giving it to quite a few artists in the Queens, New York area. So I wasn't the only one that received it as well. So that was a great opportunity. And that also really pushed me to do my album because, it had been an idea for a long time. And I just never felt like I had enough time to devote to it. So getting that grant, it was like, okay, I got to do this now, because also you have a deadline to use the money as well.
Ah,
So Yeah, even though it honestly wasn't a tremendous amount of money either. A lot of my personal money went into uh, producing Pursuit of Harmony, so that granted only helped with a portion of it.
Got it. Got it.
But yeah, it did still push me to get it done, which was great.
Got you. Okay. So as far as like albums go, this is your first album. What else kind of went into you doing the album? What are some things that I guess you didn't really know before that you had to put in and develop or do in order to finalize it and everything? And I know you called it Pursuit of Harmony. So what was that all about as well?
Yes. So I guess I'll start with the title, Pursuit of Harmony. It really was at that time, and still now, I am very much in a pursuit of balance in my life. And just to make it sound a little nicer, instead of balance, I said harmony. Which, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Harmony is kind of a balance. And so I'm still in pursuit of a balance between, my music school and managing that, and also being an artist and a performer. And like you were saying, you were mentioning you don't know how I find the time to do it. And sometimes I don't know either. I don't know. But I somehow managed to do both. And I definitely want to devote more time to my artistry, because I have been mainly focused on the music school for the past almost going on 5 years now. So, I still am in pursuit of that harmony, and I am, looking forward to kind of expanding, getting more staff and help so that I can put more focus into my artistry. But that is where the title came from. And not only was it within my life that I was trying to find balance, but also with my music, I felt there was a push for either contemporary music or, more old school like jazz. And so, and even classical music on the piano. And so, but I've always loved both. I've always loved the old school and I appreciate it. And I love the new school and appreciate that too. And so I really wanted to have the album kind of have a balance between the two as well, and kind of mix some old school songs with some new school songs.
Yeah, you could kind of hear that in the album. And my daughter loves the album. She won't even let me skip songs. Like sometimes I'd be like,
really?
Yeah.
So
She's like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, because I like to hear, like, I like to start off with Lift Every Voice. I thought that was a dope rendition of that.
You.
But she gets upset. But her favorite song is definitely Moaning. Like she just wants to play that on
nice. I love it. Yes.
Yeah, she loves the album, man. I love the album. I think it's extremely creative, and I like how you put some covers in there along with some of your own things and added some singing in there as well. That was pretty cool. And speaking of the album, I kind of wanted to take just a little bit of time and play one of your songs on there called Young Girl. Just ask you, what you were thinking writing that, what that song kind of means to you. So let's play Young Girl.
As young girls grow, we are taught to know things that our society value most. What they teach are supposedly important things like money, beauty, and superficiality. And as we get older, the pressure's real. Push our shoulders back and stand up tall. It is all at our feet, at our beck and call. Don't give up now, just see it through. We have got the power, it's inside of you. And you, and you. So young girl, you don't have to cry. Oh, young girl, you don't have to cry. Because you're beautiful. Life is hard, but we are strong. And we'll find a path to travel on. We may not pass without much struggle, but in the end we will always know that we're secure. Young girl, young girl. Young girl, young girl. Young girl, young
So yeah, that was Young Girl by Ashley Keiko. In the song, you kind of mentioned a lot of the pressures of being a young girl, like societal pressures and things like that. So what kind of inspired you to write the song, and what is your goal in regards to what you hope the song produces for people?
Yes, that song, I feel like it was really inspired by my teaching, surprisingly. Not so much personal experience, but in teaching young girls, I had a lot of young female students, and I always really wanted to be a good role model for them. And I also felt an obligation, not only from my parents, but also from the parents of my students, to be a good role model for them. And so I kind of had them in mind when I wrote that song. And it was really, just wanting to kind of reach that group of people, and let them know, like, it's okay, and you can be, I guess, good, for lack of a better word. You can be good, without feeling like you need to kind of submit to whatever society says that you should be like or do.
Another song of yours is "Gotta Get Up." I thought that was a pretty dope song. In the song, you kind of mentioned about being uninspired by certain types of music styles and creativity and all that kind of thing. So I just want to ask, just based on that song, like, what you think the responsibility or the role of artists and musicians are, just from your perspective.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of artists don't realize that when you become an artist, or when you become well known, that people, regardless whether you want it or not, people are going to look up to you. And, sometimes you hear artists say, like, oh, that's not my responsibility, like, they don't want to take responsibility for that. But I do recognize that. And I feel like it is really important for people to, know that people are watching you, and you can inspire people for the better if you are living your life, of course, being true to yourself, and not, being fake or anything like that, but just kind of being a good role model, and not like you don't have to kind of be in a negative space, or even, like a lot of artists today are very sexualized, and I feel
Mm,
like not fully necessary. And
agreed.
people can go a different route, and just in going that different route, you can show other people that it's okay to go that way.
Agreed, agreed. I think there definitely needs to be more artists taking that responsibility, because I do hear a lot from artists like, well, it's not I'm not a role model. It's not my response. I'm just making music that's dope, making music that I like, or whatever it is. And whoever tunes in, tunes in. But, I'm not trying to be a role model. And, I didn't tell the kids to listen to my music or my songs or tell them to do this and that. But I think, like you just mentioned, you do have that responsibility when you are in the public, especially I think for us as Black and brown folks, like we need those positive outlets, and we need more people to step up to the plate and to be role models in a positive way, and not, continue in some of the things that we get caught up in. But definitely agree with that. So part of what you do is like jazz, and I feel like jazz is kind of losing a little bit of its touch in regards to having it as a form of Black art, and it's becoming, something else. So what do you think has to be done for it to remain, where it once came from? Is it that a lot of Black artists are not going into jazz, or is it that they're not being recognized? Like, what do you feel like as a jazz artist in that space that things have to be done in order for it to stay like a Black art form and not transition into like, people scratching their head like, yo, jazz was Black, like it was,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of Black people are not interested in jazz. And yeah, people just don't take an interest to it. And even when I was going to the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music, it does have a different name now. It's just the New School for Jazz. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was at that school, there were not many Black students at all. And I know it's not just about the jazz. I know there is also the determining factor of the cost of school and the
Right.
location. There's so many things, but still, I was one of the very few Black students. And so, yeah, I have noticed that. And that has been a conversation that the jazz community, and especially the older Black folks in the jazz community, that is a topic of conversation. And I'm not quite sure what would need to be done in order for it to not, to get to the point where it's like jazz was from Black people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely don't want it to get to that point, but I'm not quite sure what the answer to that would be, because
Well, I think you're already answering some of that through the work that you do, and then providing a school and an outlet to get more musicians out there in the communities, and have them appreciate music as an art form, and not just like, obviously there's nothing wrong with rapping and doing those type of music art forms, but sometimes that's like our only perspective and vision of what music is, and we don't go into like the other things. So I think you're already doing it,
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
All right. I kind of wanted to transition into a little activity here called What's Your Favorite? Before we close out, identifying a few of your favorite things. You could elaborate if you want, or you can keep it short and simple. So I know you have performed in weddings and all type of different venues and places. What's been like your most memorable or favorite place that you performed in?
Oh, my favorite. The favorite question is always so hard for me because I think it's because I do have an appreciation for a lot of different things. Like I can always see the positive in anything. So, it's hard for me to pick a favorite, but I definitely enjoy doing, like public performances that are a large crowd. And specifically, I really enjoy doing young crowds as well. There's just a different energy and a different vibe with a
Right.
young audience. So yeah, I've always really enjoyed doing like jam sessions or open mic. So yeah, that's always really fun.
I got to ask you what your favorite cover, you got like hundreds of covers, but what's been your favorite cover that you've done?
Well, I actually have an answer for that. My favorite one so far is actually not my most popular one, but it is POV by Ariana Grande.
Mm,
And in that cover, it's on YouTube, but I play piano and saxophone in that cover, and I kind of mixed in some classical piano in that one. And yeah, that it's just one of my favorites because it kind of adds in Clair de Lune by Debussy, which is a classical piece. And I kind of mixed that into POV. So yeah, that's one of my favorites so far.
got you, got you. All right. Favorite experience you've had enjoying somebody else's music?
Hmm. I would say maybe most recently I saw Moonchild. That's a R&B soul group, and I recently saw them perform live. So that was really fun. Just, I've been following them for a long time and listening to their music. I even have their music playing in the lobby at Keiko Studios. So, I'm a true fan and I'm always listening to their music. So to be able to see them live in person was really a nice experience.
Cool, cool. All right, I gotta check that out. Moonchild.
Yes.
Interesting. Speaking of playing different artists, what's on your playlist when you're driving, when you're on the go? Like, who are you listening to?
So believe it or not, when I'm driving, I actually listen to the radio. I know a lot of people like they just, have their own playlist on Spotify and whatnot, but I think I'm one of the few people that I know that listens to the radio. And I kind of just like to hear what is popular at the moment and kind of see where people are moving, like as a culture, and how the music is evolving over the years. So I do like to hear that. But when I listen to my own playlists, I do like to listen to R&B and soul, like contemporary R&B. So Moonchild is one that I can mention. I also really like Hiatus Coyote. So that's another group.
You
I
got
know they're not as well known, but
you
but they
got
have unique music.
yeah, man. I'm definitely gonna check those out, man. Interesting. Speaking of that, man, what are some of your favorite kind of artists like out right now? For us that don't know too much about what's happening in the jazz space, what are some of the dope artists out there in your perspective?
Yeah, definitely Jasmia Horn. She is a vocalist, and I actually went to school with her.
Oh,
But yeah, she is a jazz vocalist, and she just recently came out with an album. She has a few albums out, and she is very expressive, and she doesn't hold back. She has a big personality, and so yeah, she's an amazing artist and vocalist, jazz vocalist in particular. I also really like Joshua Redman. He is I'm not sure if he's been putting out music recently, but he is a more recent artist of today that he's a saxophonist, and some of his songs are pretty unique and interesting, and his playing is amazing. So,
dope, dope. Definitely gonna check those people out. What's been your favorite teaching moment? As educators, we all have those teaching moments where like, yo, that was interesting or whatever. So what's been like your favorite teaching moment as an educator, like doing your thing?
The first thing that came to mind was when I was teaching this young girl. I was teaching her about tying the notes together. In music, the little line, they call it a tie, and it just means to go smoothly from one note to the next. And so, I was kind of showing it to her on the piano and showing her how, when you lift up one finger, the other one should go down right away so that there's no pause in sound. And so she was like, oh, so it's kind of like a seesaw, right? And I was like, you're right. It is like a seesaw. When one goes down, the other side goes up right away. And so, yeah, that was kind of That's the first thing that came to mind. It's kind of random, but yeah, it was kind of an interesting way to see how a child thinks of it, like
Right. Yeah.
as an adult, when you teach it, you're like trying to be so literal and show them like, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like and this is what it's called. And then they like at the drop of a dime can come up with an analogy without even thinking too hard about it. So yeah, that was a favorite moment.
That's dope, man. I love things like that where kids kind of bring you into their world and how they think and
Yes.
stuff like that. Switching that around, like what's been your favorite lesson that you've learned from a student?
Um, ah, I think what I guess I can't say one specific thing because I've learned so much from all of my students. So I guess in a general sense, I've learned that, everyone learns differently. And when children are learning in school, they kind of have the pressure to learn a specific way or the way that the teacher is teaching. And I feel like it's so important as teachers and educators for us to know that everyone has a different learning style, everyone thinks differently, and we have to make sure that we're, paying attention to that and catering to the different learning styles. And we can't blame a child for maybe not picking up something as quickly as someone else.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that I've experienced myself in school, just not always being able to learn as fast as the other kids, depending on the subject. And sometimes feeling like, like sometimes kids can feel like they're stupid, or maybe people will make them feel like they're stupid because they're not learning like someone else. And so, yeah, I've really learned a lot about that through teaching different people and how important it is for all educators to know that.
Agreed. That makes a ton of sense. What about like your favorite life gem that somebody has given you that just really helped you out, I guess, in a position in your life, or just that you just travel with and you're like, oh, I remember that. Like that was, good advice or whatever.
Well, one thing that my dad always says is that not everyone is meant to be understood, or not everything is meant to be understood. And that is something, even to this day, I still, have trouble with accepting that. Because, sometimes, and maybe, I don't know if it's like just my personality or if it's like a woman thing, because sometimes people relate that to being a woman. Like you always want to have an answer for something, like if someone said something, or if someone said they feel this way, or if they did something, it's like, well, you had to do it for a reason. So what's the reason? Like I'm always searching for a reason why somebody may have done something. And sometimes you have to be okay with there not being a reason. and
I
not
think for an educator, that is very difficult. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's so hard for me. And especially like as someone that is a boss as well, sometimes things happen. Maybe sometimes people have to leave a position, or, things happen, things change in people's lives. And sometimes like, you want to know everything. You want to know why someone may want to leave. You want to know, even outside of being an employer, like for students, you want to know why a student may have stopped taking lessons. Like there's so many things that I always want to know the answer of why. And, you have to be okay with not always having that answer.
that makes sense. All right, last one. Your favorite way to relax outside of music and outside of your business and all the, your life events that are happening. Like, how do you just relax and find balance?
My most favorite way to relax is going on vacation. Well, traveling specifically, because I feel like when I travel, I can really get away from everything. When I'm at home, I just the work is accessible. It's very accessible for me, which means I may just start working. Even if it's the weekend, like I really do work a lot, and I don't let myself relax a lot, which is not always a good thing. I really work myself a lot. And people always tell me, like, you need to take a break. It's okay to not work for a day. Cause sometimes
Yeah,
I feel guilty if I take a day off and don't work and I'm at home. It just doesn't even feel right to me, which is not always healthy. So, I feel
exactly.
like it's so much easier for me to relax when I'm not home. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you definitely got to take a vacation and get away, just from
Yeah.
everything every now and then. All right.
Yeah.
So looking at just the work that you're doing as an artist, as a musician, and as an entrepreneur and an educator, like, what is that legacy that you want to leave behind with Keiko Studios, with your music, and everything that you've kind of been a part of?
Yeah, I really want to, be able to look back at everything that I've done and really be proud of everything that I've accomplished. And you definitely, leave a great legacy for future generations. Like, hopefully I can be an inspiration to people, and let people know that it can be done no matter how old you are, no matter the color of your skin, your gender. You can do these things, and it is possible. So that's the legacy that I want to leave.
Absolutely. And you're already doing it. And not only can it be done, but it could be done in many times in many different ways. You're doing the sax, you're doing the piano, you're doing the vocals, you're doing the school, you know what I'm saying? Like, you educate, like, there's so much that you're doing, and you're doing it well. And showing that not only can these things be done, but they can be done at a high level. So kudos to you for doing all that, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and appreciate your time coming on and giving us some valuable gems on music and everything that you're doing. And if you could do us one more favor and leave us with your favorite quote and what it means to you.
Oh, that's a tough one. Man, I don't know if I could think of a quote off the top of my head, but if anything, maybe I can go with the motto of my parents' martial arts school, which is, where there's a will, there's a way. Nothing is impossible to a willing mind. And that's something that we always have the kids say at Zen Masters. And I feel like it's such a great thing for them to kind of memorize and say all the time, because as long as it's kind of cliche, but as long as you put your mind to it, you can do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so that's an important thing to hold on to and to remember as you get older as well. Sometimes things may feel impossible, but if you believe in yourself, it can be possible.
Absolutely. Ashley Kiko is showing us that it is possible to own your own business, be an entrepreneur, be an educator, be an ill musician, and all the wonderful things that you're doing. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a good role model with it as well. We talked about that, the importance of your responsibility as a musician, and you are owning up to that responsibility. So appreciate that as well. Um, yeah, man. And again, thank you for coming on. Listeners, thank you for listening. Definitely want to share. And before we leave out, Ashley, if you could share with us where people can find you. And for those that are interested, maybe they're in the New York area, they want to, see about some classes and stuff like that, how they can reach you.
Yes. So you can find me on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, at Ashley Keiko. Keiko is spelled Keiko. And you can find my music school on social media as well, at Keiko Studios. We also have a website, kikostudios.com. I have a website, which is ashleykiko.com. And if you're interested in music lessons, you can always feel free to call us at 718-465-3456.
There it is, man. There it is. Right in the New York area, in the heart of Jamaica, Keiko Studios. Definitely support Black business and also check out Ashley Keiko's album as well. You will not regret it. It is a fun listen. And like I said, my daughter doesn't want me to skip at all. I don't really want to skip, but I like to listen to lift every voice kind of first and everything. That's my thing. But definitely check out Ashley's music and support Black business. And of course, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the universe. Therefore, if you can think it, you can do it. If you believe in it, you can be it. And if you fight for it, you can have it. The world is yours. This has been your host, Mr. G, and I will see you next time on Mastermind.
Hi, this is Ashley Keiko, and you're listening to Pursuit of Harmony.